Remember to practice good mental hygiene. So most of our lives, we do not practice good mental hygiene. We establish thinking patterns that are either destructive or self-sabotaging or stick us in kind of a loop, an illogical loop where we always go back to the beginning. It never leads us out or towards a productive thought or productive action. So establishing all of these little patterns, all of these little lines of thought, lines of thinking that are counterproductive are how we get stuck in a mind that just doesn't feel right. We're never quite happy, we're never quite content. There's an emptiness, a bad kind of emptiness. And then we fill it up with agitation, stress, and all kinds of other thoughts that while it fills up the space because we want to fill that void of loneliness, of emptiness, of lack of purpose with just stuff. So we get stuck in these thought patterns where we crave something to fill ourselves with, but then we fill ourselves with agitation because of these thought patterns. Remember, you are not your mind. Think of your mind as a puppy. And you might be sitting somewhere and watching the puppy run around, tear stuff up, or behave badly in a number of different ways. You can train this puppy, but most of us, we identify as the puppy. We think we are the mind. We think we are the thoughts, rather than these things being a tool for us to really employ in any kind of way as human beings. Animals, they get trapped in thought loops, and they are their mind more than we are. We can make choices to not be our thoughts and not be our mind, and we aren't. As human beings, we've risen to a level to where thoughts and mind are an extension of us rather than something that's inflicted upon us. Nature inflicts thoughts on animals. It inflicts tendencies. With human beings, we kind of inflict them on ourselves, and we imagine our nature is doing it. We imagine that something within us, our animal nature is doing it, or our mood is doing it to us, or the world is doing it to us. We're not acknowledging that it is just a puppy that we have to train, and that we are not that puppy. We are not the animal nature. We do not have to be inflicted by thoughts in a mind that has not practiced good mental hygiene. So good practices to take up and to develop, practices of good mental hygiene are to, when you have a negative thought, acknowledge that thought. Say, I acknowledge I'm having this negative thought, that whether it's a thought that I'll always be alone, or, ooh, how am I going to afford this, or I'm not going to have enough money, when am I going to graduate school, when am I going to get a better job, this job is awful, this job is boring, I don't want to come in every day, I don't want to do this every day, how am I going to keep on doing this for years and years and years? All of these negative thoughts don't necessarily lead to a solution. Now, it's good to have a plan out of your situation. If it's a crappy situation, you don't want to be in it. But as soon as you have a plan, all of these thoughts just become negative chatter. They become something that we allow to inflict us rather than taking control of our thoughts. So when you're having negative thoughts like this, just step back for a second. Say, am I allowing this thought to change my emotions, to make me sad, to make me angry, to make me hopeless, to make me depressed? Am I allowing it? And 100% of the time, it's always, yes, you are allowing these thoughts to do that. As long as it's just a thought, there's not somebody in front of you threatening your life, or somebody who is yelling at you all these negative things that are standing in front of you. As long as that is not the case, then we are allowing these thoughts to affect our mood, to make us more depressed, to make us more angry, to make us more frustrated. We don't have to allow that. So we can step back, say, are these thoughts affecting my mood? Yes. Am I allowing it? Yes. Okay, I am not going to entertain these thoughts anymore. Practice again and again and again, disengaging from these mental loops, disengaging from entertaining these negative thoughts, and just choosing to either not think or think in different directions. Sometimes it's useful to think about, what am I going to make for dinner? What's the next thing on my to-do list for today? Or you start thinking of good old positive memories, or you just allow your mind to be empty, but a full kind of emptiness, if that makes sense. So if you can not think, and if you can practice not thinking, not allowing this mental chatter to exist, you'll get better and better at it. Meditation helps a bunch, but you can choose to just not think. That might sound crazy, that might sound extremely hard to do, but the more you practice it, the more you'll feel this sense of emptiness that is full. So you'll notice that this kind of emptiness, there's a kind of emptiness that is due to sadness and depression. And that emptiness is surrounded by negative thoughts, where that emptiness doesn't last long, because eventually, we kind of go to the next negative thought or go to the next agitation and fill that space. But a positive kind of mental emptiness is when awareness is there and you're aware of consciousness, but you don't feel like you have to fill that void with something. You just are. You can just be. That's why meditation is so useful in developing this awareness of your own consciousness, rather than just an awareness of a lack of something. Because you're going to feel this negative emptiness throughout your day. We all have negative thoughts. We all have negative thoughts that surround these emptiness before it jumps to another negative thought. As a negative void between the negative thoughts. But we can recognize that these voids exist in between negative thoughts, and we can change our thinking. And as a result, we'll have a better chance to have voids that are positive, kind of positive void, a kind of emptiness that you crave, that you want to be in, that you want to experience. And that's awareness of consciousness, rather than an infliction between negative thoughts. So good mental hygiene, it also requires having a pretty balanced diet. It's really hard to eat very badly and to be in a good mood. If you're eating very fatty foods or eating very unhealthy a lot of the time, then your animal nature is more likely to turn towards the negative, and it's going to be harder. And your animal nature will we still allow our animal nature to inflict us. We're still allowing it, but it's a whole lot easier when your body feels clean and your body is processing fuel that is meant to be processed. When the body processes fuel that actually nourishes us, then it puts us in a better place to actually fight those negative thoughts and to not experience that terrible empty void that we want to fill between the negative thoughts. It's so much easier when your body runs effectively. And when you're practicing good mental hygiene, you're identifying negative thoughts and choosing not to think them. And develop this skill by trying again and again and again. And society doesn't really encourage good mental hygiene, whether it's on Facebook or gossip around the workplace or in school or your home. There's all this chatter that encourages excitement, but kind of more animalistic excitement, rather than excitement, something that's like spiritual or that increases awareness, but a rajasic, a restless kind of excitement. There's all kinds of politics is that way. The news reporting is that way, trying to get you those little highs of being excited, but it usually tends towards the fearful or the amused at somebody's expense. So you'll find a lot of this when you look for the amused at somebody's expense or the fear, or just negativity in general. You're gonna see a lot of it in society. You're gonna see a lot of it on Facebook. You might even experience it in your home. You might experience it among your friends, and you're gonna start to realize that there's all these influences that are influencing us to not have a fuller experience of ourselves, and that guides us towards those negative thoughts and that negative thinking and those negative voids in between negative thoughts. So if you encounter negative, chatter in the world or wherever, decide to kind of disassociate. So, observe it, but don't become a part of it. Even if you're speaking in response, choose to emotionally not become involved. So if you're replying to somebody or you're responding to something on Facebook or anything like that, then just reply from a place of just evenness. And practice this evenness. Practice replying from a space of evenness and a space of non-emotional engagement. Because the world wants you to engage emotionally. It wants you to become invested emotionally. But choosing to just practice flatlining those emotions and choosing to not become committed emotionally. Because in the world, it's very hierarchical. And people want to be correct, or they want to be above you, or they want to drag you into what they're emotionally committed to. And most most people do this. They don't realize they're doing this. I don't think that most people are bad people, but people have bad communication tendencies. And you're going to see it more and more the more that you look for it. But remember, you don't have to be engaged. You don't have to fall into the same trap that you experience other people falling into. And practicing that evenness, practicing that awareness of consciousness without those negative voids, but good voids where awareness exists, will help you immensely. That's why meditation practices, breathing, focusing on your breath, focusing on your mantra, focusing on a positive emptiness, lets you feel what that is like. And that's what we want to fill our lives with more and more. And when we go to negative thoughts, you'll find that it's much easier to create a better space of awareness, and transform those voids, those negative voids, those bad emptinesses between negative thoughts, to transform those into awareness. It's incredibly difficult when you first begin, and it's incredibly difficult to disengage your emotions just on a drop of a hat. But you can do it, and the more that you practice doing it, the more that you become a person who thinks that they can do it, and acknowledges that the mind and thoughts are just that puppy. You are not the puppy. The more that you do that, the easier this will become, and the easier that you will float through life, and you'll traverse all kinds of negative situations that you might fall into, because you're going to fall into them. So it's good to practice positive mental hygiene, good mental hygiene, so that these thought patterns are either rewritten if they exist, or they do not develop further. Because we all kind of have negative thought patterns, but you don't want them to develop further, and you want to rewrite them, because negative thought patterns are channels in your brain that your thoughts will float down, will follow again and again and again. It's almost like it's like a physical thing in the brain where these grooves, we think we have patterns of thinking that we repeat again and again and again, and these paths get formed deeper and deeper and deeper. But we can rewrite them. And once we acknowledge that they exist, we can choose not to entertain them, and new paths will form. It might not be the actual ridges of the brain, but we can form new pathways. And then those new pathways of thought will form new pathways of behavior, and you'll become a different person who isn't depressed, isn't stressed, and isn't inflicted, but somebody who controls themselves, and whose mind and thoughts are an extension of yourself as a tool rather than a plague, rather than a sickness, which I think for most people, at least a little bit, are a little bit sick when it comes to thinking patterns. It's not all terrible, but everybody has at least some small thinking pattern sickness. But good mental hygiene and encouraging that within yourself will help you overcome very many trials, and help you to become a much more full person. And you'll start to see yourself becoming stronger emotionally. You'll start to see that your emotions really are under your control by practicing good mental hygiene. At any rate, I hope this was interesting. I hope this was useful. I hope that I made sense. Like this video if it helped out at all. Shoot a comment in the comment section. That really helps out the channel, get traffic to the channel. So do those likes. Feel free to share this wherever you like. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.